We are recording to the cloud. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Scott Brown. I am the Program Quality Director here for District 11. Welcome to Sergeant at Arms Training. It is fantastic to have everyone here tonight. Did everyone have a good weekend this weekend?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, before the snows came, you were able to get outside for even just a little bit to get some fresh air, hopefully.
Sun.
Yes. I know, I saw that. I was confused to what that color was in the sky. I wasn't used to blue. It threw me for a loop. Well, we are very glad everyone is back tonight. We are so glad you're here for Sergeant at Arms training. And we have an absolute treasure of information to be shared with you tonight by someone that I am absolutely thrilled and looking forward to hearing this evening with what I think is one of the best looking presentations that we have had yet for any of our club officer trainings. So first off, kudos to you, Delbert, for fantastic visuals for tonight. They're absolutely wonderful. When we put out the call for speakers, Delbert was one of the first ones that was voluntold. He did not know that he was going to be doing this training tonight until his division director said, I know who you should call. You should call Delbert. And Delbert said, yes, I completely agree. I will be more than happy to do that. So Delbert didn't necessarily volunteer right away, but when he was voluntold, he stepped up and immediately said, yes, I absolutely would love to help you out. So he is here tonight, and it is my pleasure to welcome the one, the only, the fantastic Delbert Spear. Please give it up for Delbert Spear, your Sergeant at Arms facilitator for this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Just as a quick housekeeping note, so a few folks I saw kind of coming into the meeting as Scott was talking, want to just re-enter again, make sure that you are putting in the club that you're in, as well as how long you've been in Toastmasters. And Scott, what was the last piece of that?
I don't need how long. I need your name, your club name, and the role and or roles that you hold. So your name, your club's name, and the role and or roles that you hold within your club, and we'll get you signed up here to make sure you get credit for coming to training tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody. Everybody should be seeing that now. Awesome. Cool. And as you notice, I'm coming to you from the basement of my house. Now, why this is interesting, not only am I in the basement, but I've actually got the presentation pulled up on the computer, and I had to call in on my phone for the audio and the video because my smart self left my extra webcam sitting on my desk at work. Why am I telling you this? Because we now operate in a whole different space than we did 1 year ago, almost to the day. So some of the things that you're going to hear going on around me, I have a 5-year-old upstairs. So you're going to hear him probably running around. I also have 3 dogs, and you're going to hear them running around with said boy. So I appreciate everyone's patience with that, but this is our new world. This is Sergeant of Arms training, and it has way more people than I expected it to have. To tell you a little bit about me and how I've been involved with Toastmasters and some of the work that I've done. I've held every officer position there is to hold. I've been in Toastmasters for about 10 years, just over 10 years now. And I've also held positions at the district level. And this is my first instance of a pandemic, as well as my first instance of conducting officer training via Zoom. So trying new stuff. Today, I want to tell you a little bit about our journey together. This is going to look different than if you've ever attended other Sergeant of Arms training, because I was thinking about this today, and I think it's important that we note that we really have 2 versions of this. We have where we would have been 1 year ago in Sergeant of Arms, and we have where we are right now with Sergeant of Arms. I'm going to speak to both of those because at some point in time, we are going to resume some degree of normalcy in terms of being able to meet face-to-face again. So kind of with that, if we could, make sure folks are muted. Scott, you should be able to handle that as host, so that way everybody can hear me. And don't worry, there's going to be activities and things like that that we do in here and discussion. There we go. There's nothing worse than the instructor who simply talks all the time. So we'll have stuff we have to do. All right. Everybody knows the club mission, right? Well, good, because someone's gonna say it. Looking down through here, let's see. Let me go over to my other screen and see who all we have. Who has cameras on? Who can I pick on? Dave, I have a headset just like you, my friend, in my office at work. And my coworkers make fun of me because they say I look like an air traffic controller. It makes my world way easier, and I wish I had it right now. So if possible, could I have you read for us the club mission?
We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Thank
you. Much appreciated on that. So something that we're all obviously quite familiar with and we're comfortable with. The reason why I wanted to bring that up is that's at the bookends of what we do as Sergeant of Arms, is really any position we occupy. Scott alluded to capturing your name, the club that you're in, you captured that. Now, the reason why I was curious about how long folks had been in Toastmasters is because I recognize that folks come from all different experience levels. And I'm going to lean on my co-host just a little bit to help me out a little bit. Hey, Scott, in that chat window, since I'm trying to manage both screens and all of that, thank you, sir. If you could throw up that poll there for us. So folks, you all should see this poll and let's get a feel for how long folks have been in this, because that's going to kind of dictate what I talk about a little bit. So for your 5+ year people, some of this you may know, but let's see. But what you're going to find is that this is our first pandemic.
All right, so let's give everybody about 3 more seconds, 2 more seconds. All right, end of polling. So it looks like less than a year. We have 30% of our group, less than 2 years because of the 65%. So 1 to 2 years is 35%, 3 to 5 years, 13%, and more than 5 years, a quarter of us that are here have been a Sergeant at Arms.
Wow.
So very nice. Thank you, everybody.
My screen says, how long have you helped your role? I've helped.
I typed wrong. I'm sorry.
So you mean held?
We judge on
held. It's a typo.
Well, I've held my Sergeant of Arms for years, but I haven't held it. Sorry.
Oh, no. We get the idea. It's okay.
Yeah, all good. So the intent here was I just wanted to get a feel for everybody that was in attendance, kind of where folks were at with this. Now, the cool part about this is this kind of experience and this set of diverse experiences means that we're going to have a really nice discussion here. Does anybody want to volunteer a non-Googleable? That's a word that I made up. Fact about themselves. I'll share one and tell you all. A fact about me is I once crawled down in a storm drain to actually save a kitten. And so you can't find that on LinkedIn. You can't find that on Facebook, but it is in fact out there. Does anybody want to pitch in a non-Googleable fact about themselves?
I am an only child and an only grandchild, and I currently have all of 5 living relatives.
All right. So an only child. My son's going to be an only child.
Yes. I have less people in my family than you can hold an effective meeting with.
Nice. And the fact that you make that connection is a little disturbing, but we won't go into that. All right. Well, I appreciate you sharing with that. So let's spend just a little bit of time, guys. And this is an interaction. I can stand up here and talk all day, and I'm getting paid the same either way. For the record, I'm not getting paid, just so you know. But let's talk through, like, how do we think we support the club mission that Dave was so kind to read for us? So I'm really leaning into you 5+ year people that have been, we got a quarter of the folks in here have been doing this for a while. How do we lean into that?
Encouragement.
Kind of like I'm encouraging you all now.
I think by providing by providing the meeting space and getting things prepared, it allows the meeting to go on without any disruptions or complications and provides for a better environment.
Yes, somebody's got some experience, and we're going to talk specifically about that. I appreciate you sharing that as well. And I apologize because I'm trying to manage both. I'm reminding myself to look at my phone and over at my monitor to pay attention to what's going on. So yeah, we do some meetings, some pre-meeting stuff. We offer encouragement. Is there anything else anybody has done that's been a little bit interesting, perhaps, in this last year or so?
I will speak to also what Lisa said, just to add in reference to your question. Because of the pandemic, we have had to be a little creative in terms of social gathering because we lose that social aspect of the Toastmasters Club due to the pandemic. So we've had to do some creative things via Zoom, Zoom Christmas parties and social gatherings via Zoom. So that's one thing.
Well, and I'll speak, the club that I'm a part of, it actually resides in a hospital. I work for Norton Healthcare. So you can imagine, our world got dicey very quickly. And yeah, for a while, our hospital, Norton it still is shut down to a lot of visitors. And so that we went from face-to-face to no face-to-face option literally overnight.
Wow.
So awesome. Go ahead. Did I catch a comment?
I just think that as Sergeant at Arms, I have offered guidance during the meetings.
So I've
by
heard
opening
guidance, encouragement.
Yes. Encouragement. Yes.
Setting up the room. Now, so you all know that Toastmasters offers this, and for you 5-year, maybe even 3-year plus people, we've all seen the Toastmasters official presentation. I'm going to show a tiny little piece of that later on. But when I was looking at that, the more it just crossed my mind that this simply does not apply today. So we're going to say, what did it look like before the pandemic? So a year ago, how were we operating as Sergeant of Arms? Well, we kept track of the property. In my office right now, I have a cart full of Toastmasters stuff. So it's got the lectern in there. It's got the lights for the timing, which now I use my phone. In case anybody's wondering, Toastmasters app is great for that. It also has our banners that we've got. It's got all of our pins and just all those things that help keep the meeting appropriate and moving. Equipment wise, we're fortunate enough that at Norton we have a room where we can meet, where we've got audio and video stuff. So I don't have to cart that stuff around. But I do help manage the actual meeting space, and I coordinate the efforts to get that reserved and all the things that are involved with that in terms of making sure that we don't have physician meetings or anything like that going on. So when people ask me, how would you put Sergeant of Arms in one sentence? I would say, keep track of the stuff. And stuff can look very different depending upon the club that you're in. If you've got a lot of stuff, cool, you're keeping up with a lot. If you've only got a few things, well, you don't have a lot to have to worry about. But the reality is that's what you're responsible for. So how do we outline those responsibilities? So I thought about how do I do things, and what does Toastmasters suggest? So 2 weeks before the club meeting. Now I use 2 weeks. You can do this 4 weeks. In case of room reservations, I'm doing that a year in advance, because the room that we occupy at Norton is was a very sought after room. But I think good rule of thumb would be 2 weeks before the club meeting. What am I doing? I'm going to make sure, I'm going to check with Jennifer. That's my contact, and make sure that we're all good there, that the room is squared up. Now, we've never really had an issue at Norton where the room gets kicked off or something like that. But I think if you're in a space, especially that's a public driven space, that's something to consider. Is the person difficult to get a hold of? What does that interaction look like? You as Sergeant of Arms, and especially for you newer folks, you need to be finding that out from your existing Sergeant of Arms peoples, because you're going to return back to face at some point. Now the blank ballots, we do voting a little differently. But so this was kind of new for me. This is not something that I have traditionally done, but it technically would be the responsibility of the Sergeant at Arms. The day of the meeting, what in the world do I got to do? I got to arrange the room. We talked about that a little bit. Again, this is pre-pandemic, folks. Making sure that everything is good to go in the room. I thought to check the room temperature was kind of funny, because in the room that we meet in, it's interesting because it's either incredibly hot or incredibly cold. And I've actually put in tickets with our facilities to try and get that addressed. Is that the Sergeant of Arms role? Perhaps, if they have the access and the resource to be able to do it. The other part was to put that table near the door, if that's an option. Some clubs use the guest book. Other clubs focus more on capturing their guest information. However you're doing the guest piece, just make sure that it gets done. Because the reality is, if you're assuming that someone else is doing it, then no one else is going to do it. So let's recap that. I'm going to make sure that I got space for us to be able to physically meet. And I'm going to make sure that the room is ready to rock and roll for the meeting. And then I forget who mentioned they want to encourage folks during the meeting, which is that sit, near the door, welcome folks, help them get seated if that's what you need to do. Coordinate food service. I don't know when we're going to return to that. The thought of it for all my healthcare friends makes everybody go, no. But if there's going to be food or drinks or anything like that in the club, that's going to be something that you want to make sure that you're handling. If you guys do any voting or anything like that, you're going to be responsible not just for supplying those ballots, but going through and tallying those votes and handling the awards if and when that's needed for your club. Once you're finished up with the meeting, if you didn't have to rearrange the room, voila, you're good. But if you did have to rearrange the room, put it back to the way you found it, because that's just the right thing to do. Get all the materials together. If you own a tiny car, you're probably going to struggle if you got a lot of stuff. I've told our Sergeant of Arms incoming folks that if you don't have a little SUV, you're probably going to have a hard time carting this cart around that we have to deal with. This should look a little familiar to all of our existing folks. I'll make sure that Scott sends out these two links here. And these are the links to the official club officer training that Toastmasters gives you. We just went over it because so much of it does not apply in a current pandemic situation. And this is the manual that accompanies this presentation. I like to give people those resources. Now is where we're going to go off script. I hope everybody's ready. Everybody knows John Maxwell, right? Get a shake of heads or nods, a hand raise. There we go. So ask yourself, how have you grown in the last year? Does anybody want to pitch in? I can go down my list of people. I see I'm an instructor, you all. I'm comfortable with silence.
I have learned how not to swear while on Zoom when I'm trying to connect, and it keeps on doing crazy things.
Yes, because it's always listening, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I will honestly say I'm going through and I'm looking at how many people are in this Zoom. And I have taught Sergeant of Arms training twice before. And I've only maybe had a fourth of this many people show up to an officer training for Sergeant of Arms. So way to go, you all, for jumping in here and doing this. I'm looking through here. I see somebody else in our basement, kind of like me. I think that's Michael picking on you there. I see the rafters above, like I've got. Tom, I think, might be calling in from his phone as well. Cool stuff going on here. I'm a little jealous of Rebecca's background. I see a lot of knowledge happening back there. Cool stuff going on. I love to take a moment just to get to kind of see where folks are. Yeah, we've had to grow in a lot of weird ways, haven't we? So let's talk about what the role looks like during our pandemic situation. So all of our new folks, you haven't, unfortunately, you haven't seen prior to this. You just think this is what it is. Now, keep in mind, this is off script. So I'm writing this from my personal experience and the things that I have worked with my club and as a club mentor in other arenas to help them with. So some of the things that you should be thinking about: logging into Zoom early with that camera on. If your meetings are via Zoom, that's what you're going to want to do. Why? Because, hello, I called in from my phone and yet I'm having to operate my computer. Because you're going to have tech issues. Things are going to happen. So make sure that you're getting in and you're taking care of that. Some clubs are using what's called, Zoom has a functionality for a waiting room. This allows folks to kind of get in this little holding stage before they get processed into the actual room. If you do have a waiting room, make sure you're the one managing it. What you all don't see as a host, once Scott made me the co-host of this, I would get a message that would pop up and say, Ken and Carrie want to join in on your meeting. And I would have to hit the admit button. Now you do that because you want to kind of monitor who's participating and who's jumping into your meeting. Make sure you got that hosting and co-hosting duties assigned. So I'd already exchanged a message with Scott earlier in the day and said, hey, when I jump in, make sure you put me as co-host. And that way I can mute everybody if I need to. I can kick somebody out if I need to. If Scott gets a little unruly, I just put him out to the curb. Sometimes it happens. Now, the more challenging one is being prepared to run some tech. If Zoom is not your thing and you're not a highly technical person, that's okay. Just make sure you know who is in your club. Try and have somebody available that can help troubleshoot issues. I've found this to get fewer and fewer each time because most of our audience is used to Zoom to some degree now. A year ago, I think this would have been a much different story with trying to get people to log in and go through all this. But so many folks are doing it for their job. I mean, I was on 7 Zooms today for work. And I'm in an office and I was still on 7 Zooms. But not everybody's that way. So make sure that you know who needs to be able to help them out. And that's where the muting people becomes necessary at times too. Because if you ever been in a Zoom meeting and all you hear is somebody banging around on their keyboard,
yeah.
Can I get a raise of hands if that's distracting? Yeah. Now, there's certain things that are beyond our control. If, my son all of a sudden hollers out at the dogs or they start barking because somebody comes to the door, some of those things are out of our control. But what Scott knows as my co-host, I can't be worried about trying to mute people that are, not realizing that they're not on mute. He's handling that function for me. So then that way, what you hear is just me coming through. When we don't have to be worried about all the other outside distractions. If you want the meeting to roll smoothly, you're going to know those things. You're going to still keep track of the physical property. Although, it did sit in my old office, those things, for 9 months. And it was weird because I pulled out the little goals board that we have. And I'm not going to lie, it felt like a lifetime ago looking at that. I thought, wow, that is really odd to even see. But for now, you still should be keeping track of that stuff. For our new folks, since you just came into this, if you don't know where your stuff is, talk to the previous officers and find out. Go ahead and just get that stuff now, because we're going to eventually return to a state where we're more comfortable meeting face to face. So what's the specific responsibilities? Remember my before club meeting, during club meeting, and post club meeting. So that kind of gave you an outline. So what in the world am I going to be doing before the club meeting? I'm going to make sure I have the copy of the Zoom link. And I'm going to make sure I have a copy of it in 2 places. Because inevitably, I'm going to have a tech problem. Something is going to go wrong. So I want to make sure that I've got that Zoom link. I'm also, like I said, going to know who's actually hosting the meeting. Why that matters. We're in a meeting and I'm hosting and I don't have a co-host. My internet goes down. What happens to our meeting? Done.
Yeah.
All of you all are kicked off and you're all saying, well, that was pointless. And if you've ever had it happen to you, it sucks. So make sure that you know who's hosting that meeting and that you got a backup plan as a co-host. Manage the waiting room if you choose to have that. I like the waiting room personally because I think it gives folks a nice little staging area. Plus, we can kind of see who's coming into the meeting. This gets really important if you're going to have a lot of guests. Because you want to know who those guests are. I have not been privileged to witness somebody called Zoom bombing, which is where they just pop in your meeting at random. I haven't had that happen, but I'm sure that there have been people that have had that happen. So the waiting room's a great function to use. And then think about using polls in breakout rooms. Now I use Scott and I use the poll here very easily. Simple question, throw it up on the screen. We went through that function. If I wanted to give us some things to do on Teams, I could immediately put us in breakout rooms, and the system will actually go through and put everybody in at random, or you can pick and choose what you want. The reason why I say these are things that we can use. So if I go through here, and again, I'm on at least a half dozen Zooms a day. I can look down through here and I can see everybody logged in and see folks looking at their screen and get a feel for, we want people to have good reason to pay attention. So polls are really fun for table topics. Hint, hint, hint. Because they're really easy to do. We talked about during the club. If I was the Sergeant at Arms in this meeting, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing these things for my club because our Toastmaster has other things they're trying to be worried about. It is very difficult to manage the room and manage this simultaneously. That's why Zoom has host and co-host functionality. If you haven't been doing this, that's okay. Have a conversation about it. I'm giving you the suggestion now. You can be like, hey, what a great idea. I should probably jump in and try to do that. I like the chat feature. Now, I'm not managing the chat room. Thank God I got Scott. Because the chat room's really nice because not everybody wants to speak. And two, we're all still used to that social norm of we can't speak over other people. And we'll speak and then Scott will speak and then I'll speak. And, so what do? We just stay quiet, don't we? And nobody speaks at all. The chat works really well for that. You can also encourage things like raising the hand. There's some reactions in Zoom as well. Try to find creative ways to pull people in. I'm still amazed that we got this many people on a Sergeant of Arms training. Like that, again, been here for a long time and it blows my mind. Like I mentioned, if you're not that Zoom subject matter expert, make sure you're still connecting with guests and members who struggle and get them to that person who is. Because the last thing we want in this element, in this world that we're living in now, is somebody having a tech issue and that tech issue is the barrier to somebody potentially joining in your club. We have grown our club in a pandemic because we leaned really heavy into Zoom. Is it easy? No. Is this the preference? No. Is this the reality? Yes. Do I have a choice? Unless I want to withdraw from Toastmasters, absolutely have a choice. But that's it. I have to figure out a way to make this work. It's not my ideal and it's no one else's ideal, but it's what we're working with. So we can either lean into that or we can lean away from that. And all of these, has anybody caught the symbolism of the pictures that I used for our presentation? I'm an imagery guy. So there's my contact info there. There's my email. And I'm going to show you all a little bit about the club that I'm a part of. Very, very briefly. Because then I want to open it up and give everybody the awkward time to talk. Take my email down. Shoot me an email. Look, I've been doing this, like I said, 10 years. And this is the first time that I've ever spent a year really mastering this Zoom thing. And I have to say, it's really grown me as a speaker. It's made me think about how I present. Not so much where I present, because I'm in my unfinished basement. You're in my house. I don't care. You're not here to look at what I'm surrounded by. You're here to listen to what I have to say. So I need to make it useful and valuable to you. So send me an email. Ask me questions. You can either spend 30 minutes with me and waste your time, or you can spend 30 minutes and say, I need to take something away from here. Go into it kind of thinking something new, better, different. So how has my club kind of leaned into this? Here we are, right in the front page of our Toastmasters site. And there's the face-to-face piece that, you know, we'll eventually be able to come back to. There's our Zoom right there. We're telling people how we're meeting. Now, Sergeant Arms, you don't necessarily have to do that, but I'm just trying to show you all some potential things to think about as you're going through this. Because especially for you brand new people, when you have to resume some kind of face-to-face activity, it's going to be really weird and odd. Again, I can spend this whole time talking, or I can open up the floor and we ask questions. Now, before you start with 1,000 questions, and I want 1,000 questions, by the way, don't be fearful of asking a question that you think you should already know the answer to. I'm telling you that because I'm the one that really struggles with, oh God, I'm supposed to know this, right? So because I'm supposed to know this, I probably shouldn't ask it. We're in a different world now, you all. This is a different kind of space. When I typed in Sergeant of Arms, Toastmasters, Zoom, nothing didn't come back. Stuff came back, but none of it was relevant to Zoom. Nothing. So no question should go unasked. What's on folks' minds? Don't worry about speaking over each other. It's not the end of the world. We're all Zoom experienced, and it's going to be okay. No one's going to be embarrassed at all. I mean, I have to try to stop looking at myself over here on the other screen because I look silly.
I have a question. Hi, this is Latoya from the Calumet Toastmasters. My question real quick is the poll, will it work for speakers, like the speeches as well, or mainly for table topics?
I think depending upon how you want to, you could use it for tabletop topics, or you could use it for speakers if whoever is giving the speech wants to fold that into their actual speech itself.
Okay.
Latoya, there are clubs that I'm in that use the polling feature for voting. That if they're voting for best speaker, best table topics, they use the polling feature for that. Other clubs just have people send their votes through chat to the vote counter. But it works either way. It depends whatever you want to use it for.
Okay. Yeah. And I know too, we have virtual in person, and then we have Zoom as well. So that would be like something I thought about, text
Hybrid.
to chat, vote. Yeah, we have the hybrid. So it was just a thought of trying to make it as simple as possible for all the members.
The one club that I'm in that's a hybrid, meaning they go to on a regular basis, which, Meg, I'm sorry, but it's not LOT. It is ACE, which is a club in Orlando, Florida, where I am from. It was one of my first clubs. We use the polling feature for voting there because I'm in Indiana. There's another member that moved to Chicago. There's another member that moved to Los Angeles, and we're all still members. So we just use the polling function to make it easier for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'd be interested to know how many people are looking ahead and having a discussion about being hybrid clubs, because I think when we go back to face, there's going to be a much larger contingent than there used to be that would like to continue, but would, even post-pandemic might be interested in continuing on Zoom. And then how do you tackle paying for and handling the IT equipment for all that?
Yeah, I think you're on the, there's a reason why I separated out the presentation from pre and post pandemic, because I 100% agree. This veil of technology has been pierced, which is good. But what that means now is that to be effective, we're going to have to do it both ways. Because there are times when I couldn't come to a meeting face to face because I have another meeting that's Zoom backing right up to my Toastmasters time. So if we're going to be effective in the future, we're going to have to consider, how do we reach audiences both ways? Good question. Good question. Now, as for the paying for it piece, I will say personally, we use our own individual club dues. Those aren't the the dues you pay to International Toastmasters. These are just for our own individual little club. I call them treehouse dues. Those play a part in making sure that we can pay for that. And I know Toastmasters has a nonprofit status, and if you type in nonprofit Zoom, the first link is on Google. The first link sends you to you get a bit of a discount with Zoom. And we've tried 7 different audio video platforms. Zoom was the most effective. It was the easiest to use. We used Google as well, but it was kind of wonky. The connection would kind of come and go, and plus too, I couldn't get to Zoom, or I couldn't get to Google from work because Norton locks rightfully so, we lock a lot of stuff down. So Zoom was the only thing that worked for me.
So Tom, I have a couple of things to add to this that are probably pretty important for you. If you know where all of our videos are stored on the District 11 website under the educational platform, one of the videos that was done by Leadership Outreach Toastmasters in Indiana. It's all of the former district directors. They did a video that talks you through how to organize a hybrid meeting. There's also a couple of videos on there that review different free platforms and some recommendations that were made based upon some of those on those reviews. So I encourage you to go to the district website, to district11.org. And on all of those free videos through the educational segment, it's about halfway down. There is Leadership Outreach Toastmasters, commonly called LOT, and they reviewed hybrid meetings and did a really good job with that. And we'll be having another meeting that'll come up with that. I believe it's next month that we're going to talk more about hybrid meetings, because as folks start to get back into live one-on-one meetings, everyone's going to hybrid, to some sort of a hybrid format. Because let's face it, a lot of folks just aren't going to be comfortable meeting face-to-face for a while.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure, Tom. Susie, I see your hand raised. What do you have, my friend? You're muted.
Susie, you're on mute.
Mute.
Welcome to Zoom. That's what we all do. I did it just earlier, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. What is the Toastmasters app?
So Toastmasters,
Which one is it?
if you go out to, whether you've got, I don't know if you've got an Android or an iPhone, but if you just go out to the App Store and type in Toastmasters, it is an actual official app from Toastmasters. You can log into it as well using your normal Toastmasters credentials that you would log into Toastmasters.org site.
Is it Toastmasters International?
Yeah, it is the actual app they created. The thing that I find the most benefit is it's got the timer function built in that you technically don't have to be logged in to use. You can just use it as a guest or whatever.
Okay,
But
so it says Speako Public Speaking?
The what?
Speako Public Speaking?
No.
Mm-mm. Do you have an iPhone or an Android?
iPhone.
Take my email down, Susie, and I'll shoot you a link for it.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Just shoot me an email for it, and I'll be able to send it to you directly.
Okay.
Robert, I think I saw, or Ronnie, I think I saw your hand up earlier. Did I? Or were you just adjusting your headset?
I was waving hi to somebody.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I saw that then at least.
I like it. Now that's making it personal. I like that. Sometimes we forget, like, the whole world can see us.
Jean Liu from Dynamic Toastmaster Club. I just want to say that the Dynamic Club, we're located in Indianapolis downtown area. We already started the hybrid meeting since October. So if anybody interested in some details, welcome. You can contact us. And I have a question about the Zoom account. I'm also a sergeant arms of a different club. We've been using the District 11 Zoom account. Is that going to be available in the near future, or do we have to think about getting our own?
So here's what we've been told, and here's kind of what we've communicated out for the past few months. Toastmasters International doesn't want to be involved in individual club business, club meetings. So we've been saying since back in, I think, October, that everyone's going to have to kind of find their own platform at some point in order to have meetings. But we know that a lot of folks are still relying on the district website, on the district Zoom accounts. Because we're in the middle of club contest season, we decided to hold off until the end of February before we insist on the migration over to other Zoom platforms for you. But Toastmasters has already made it very clear to us through a bunch of emails to myself and Jean that our job is to get out of club business as quickly as possible. So it's not something that we want to end, but it is a Toastmasters international requirement that the district should not be paying for individual accounts for clubs to host their individual meetings. They don't want to, because the same way that Toastmasters doesn't want to be involved with signing contracts for meeting spaces for clubs, it's kind of the same thing. So by the end of February, make sure that you're looking for a new account, because we're going to start weaning clubs off of the district account at the end of February. At the end of February, not January, February.
Thanks for the clarification, Scott. Thank you.
Sure.
And also too, make sure you know, if Scott doesn't already have it, but we're going to capture your email because yeah, I'd be absolutely interested in coordinating a follow-up response with you, since you guys have been doing hybrid for a while, and I know that it's on the horizon for us as a club. I'd be interested in picking your brain to see how you guys have managed that. At this time, you know, we're in a little different restriction because we're in the hospital. Our club meets in the hospital, so I don't know what that's going to look like for us. But certainly, Scott, make sure you've got her info so I can follow up with her as well.
So Rodney asked a question on it. It's a pretty good question. He said, with all the discussion on Zoom and the web, has there been any consideration to have official leadership position of webmaster/educator should the VPPR be the webmaster? The VPPR to me needs to focus on social media. Thoughts? So Rodney, I'm assuming that you're talking about at a club level. If you want to, yep, that's a yes. Okay. There's no thought from Toastmasters International to creating an 8th officer position, because Toastmasters, like many of us, are optimistic that we will not have a worldwide pandemic lockdown for eternity. If that happens, then Toastmasters is the least of our concerns. So every club's kind of doing it a little bit differently. There are some clubs where the club secretary is the Zoom master, some where the club president, some where the sergeant at arms. It really depends upon the strengths and skill sets of the individuals who are in your club. If you have somebody who's great at doing Zoom, that's probably a good person to have. There are some clubs that are somebody that's not even a club officer that takes care of the Zoom. So it's completely up to you to however it works best for you and your club. There's no one best way, but there should be somebody, but not a defined person.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with Scott on that. You know, we looked at it from that perspective of skills and expertise, and who, you know, as somebody that's on, you know, 5-6 Zooms a day, I know my way around. So I'm comfortable in that space, but I'm just the sergeant, and that's it. I'm also comfortable kind of tinkering around with our website. So I'll make quick updates to that and do changes around on that. But he's 100% right. I think you should look at it and consider what the skill set of the person is. And that's a wiser choice than looking at it just strictly from a, what's your title perspective? Because we're in a different place in space now. And I wouldn't want to put people out just because they have the title, but not necessarily the experience. When we have other people that don't have the title, but do have the experience. So look at your club and leverage what you have.
This is Meg. We have several appointed positions. We have one that's the webmaster, so someone within our club that wants to do that. We have the mentor liaison. So that's the person that contacts our new members and talks to them about who can be their mentors and things like that. We also have an appointed assistant backup to the secretary, because we think that position is so important to have minutes. And we have a backup sergeant at arms because we figure that's the next most important. So you can have as many appointed positions that you want. Obviously, those people don't get credit through Toastmasters for holding a club office. That's the only drawback.
Meg, what a fantastic way to build a bench also, so that next year you have somebody willing to move into those roles. Fantastic. I love when I hear clubs doing that. Way to go, Meg. And of all people to do that, I would expect it from you, because you're always on the cutting edge of what's new and what helps. So thank you, Meg.
I don't disagree with any of that. In fact, we do that. But my comment is that I keep hearing this thing called hybrid clubs. The computer is going to be with us for a long time. So why wouldn't Toastmasters International recognize that we would have a technology position that would be a leadership position for credit instead of the 7 we have now? That's my only question.
So let me give you a little bit of a history, and I think this might help you understand a little bit better. When we went into lockdown in March, Toastmasters International was still of the policy and mindset that we should not have any district business conducted on the internet, meaning that we weren't supposed to have district votes on the internet. We weren't supposed to have, have any trainings on the internet. We weren't allowed to do club officer training really on the internet. That wasn't a thing. That they had said, no, we are a live training organization. We will meet live no matter what. And then everything went sideways. And finally they said, wait a minute. If we meet live, no one will be live to meet. So let's let people kind of meet on the internet. We are just now embracing 20th century technology. So what you're asking for is 21st century technology, which is incredible. So I would not expect it to happen in the next year. Hopefully down the road, when we see that hybrid clubs do become a thing, I would think that Toastmasters would be kind of right in that position of, we've invented fire. Let's let people keep having fire. And I would say down the road, it wouldn't be surprising for that to happen, but don't count on it in the next year. We are still just finally embracing the internet as an option to be able to do trainings. One step at a time. I hear you, Rodney. I completely agree with you, but just to give you a realistic viewpoint, it's not going to happen tomorrow. Sorry, man.
That's a good question to bring up, and a valid point to make, because it has been slow to adopt. So we just acknowledge it and figure out how to work within it. Maybe I hope that it will be retroactive, and maybe I can get some credit for some of the stuff I've done. It probably ain't gonna be the case, but hey, a guy could be hopeful, right? What other questions we have, guys? Anybody else want to chime in? It's really cool getting to see everybody's at. I appreciate everybody calling in. I do. And I'm not gonna lie. I was upstairs finishing up dinner, and my son was like, "Hey, Daddy, are we gonna play in a bit?" I said, "Yeah, give me just a moment, son." And my watch dinged at me, and it said Toastmasters 10 minutes, and I was like, "Oh no!" So run downstairs real quick, fire up the computer, and realize I didn't have my webcam. All that. That's a new world. And I think that the thing that we have to do is we have to be patient with both ourselves and be patient with Toastmasters overall, because we're asking them to change probably quicker than they want to as well. And trust me, I have a lot of those same frustrations, because I'm strong technically and feel good about it, and I've used Zoom for quite a while, and it's everyone's having to change, and some's just changing more quickly than others. But my thing is, you've got a resource. You've got a friend. I've done all this in Toastmasters. I'm at that stage in my season in Toastmasters where I call it my legacy, where I want to give back. And as I said, I've left my email up there intentional, because I get more now out of getting to build relationships with people and watch and see how their clubs grow and learn from them than I do the speeches. And that's just me personally. That's kind of where I'm at now. Anybody else have anything they want to add, or what did folks want to add?
All right, well, if there are no more questions, let's give it up for Delbert. What a fantastic job tonight. Delbert, way to go. Fantastic job. Thank you so very, very much. We greatly appreciate it. We're disappointed that your 5-year-old didn't come down and jump on the call with you, though, because that's something that I think we all enjoy seeing small children jump on calls, along with pets. If you notice, Dave's cat was probably walking around in the video, if you were able to see Dave, because Nugget loves to come to Toastmasters.
Trust me, my son.
I see a tail. So once again, give it up for Delbert. Thank you so very, very much. We greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to hit stop record here and do a couple of housekeeping issues at the end here.